So, hi again. We'll continue the criminal law review series. Actually, tinatamad ako mag-aral today, no? But, inisip ko, nag-start ako mag-upload ng video sa YouTube and kahit nakakatamad, I have to do it because OC ako. Yung sinimulan ko, kailangan kong tapusin, right? Yung plano ko kasi, I'll finish up to the aggravating circumstances or alternative circumstances for criminal law review, and then I'll start a playlist for civil law review siguro, and then after ng civil law up to the family code lang muna, pause muna yan, then I'll start uploading political law review videos until siguro legislative department, and then babalik tayo sa criminal law review, tapos alternate na from there, criminal law review, civil law review, political law review. Pero before ako mag-move sa civil law review and political law review sa paggawa ng playlists for each, gusto ko muna tapusin hanggang aggravating circumstances. So, alright. What is a felony? Again, it's an act of omission punishable by the revised penal code. Crime naman, of course, hindi lang revised penal code, diba? Kasama dyan yung mga violations ng special penal laws. Okay? What is an act? It is any bodily movement tending to produce some effect in the external world. So, kapag iniisip mo lang na mag-commit ng crime but wala kang action, walang outside movement or walang external conduct, wala kang liability kasi it's impossible to look into the mind of a person or assume that someone will commit a crime, diba? Later, i-discuss natin yung stages of felonies. So, iba kahit sa attempted, kailangan meron pa ring bodily movement or meron pa ring act or conduct, external act or conduct para magkaroon ng liability. So, without action, walang liability. Pwede din omission. Omission naman, of course, pag di mo gagawin. It's an inaction or the failure to perform something na duty-bound ka to do dahil the law requires it. Okay, responsibility is the obligation of taking penal and civil consequences of the crime. Yun yung tinatawag natin criminal responsibility. Guilt naman is an element of responsibility. For a man cannot be made to answer for the consequences of a crime unless he is guilty. So what is the imputability doctrine? The act of an offender is imputable to himself and to his co-conspirator, although they are not similarly situated in relation to the object of the crime. It is the quality by which an act may be ascribed to a person as its author or owner. It implies that the act committed has been freely and consciously done and may therefore be put down to the doer as his very own. So, para pag-attach yung criminal liability, dapat meron kang imputability, meaning ikaw yung gumawa ng crime. Dahil ikaw yung gumawa ng crime, ikaw yung responsible for the crime, ikaw yung may liability for the crime. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So what are the elements of felonies? Acts and omissions punishable by the revised penal code. Ito yung mga elements ng felony or felonies. Dapat mayroong act or omission. As discussed, alam natin kung ano yung act, alam natin kung ano yung omission. So, dapat merong ginawa or merong hindi ginawa. Second is that the act or omission must be punishable by the revised penal code or possibly special penal law. Diba? The act is performed or the omission is incurred by means of dolo or culpa. So, ito na yung sinasabi ko last time na parang agents. Ano pala yan? Mga requisites ng dolo. Again, the three are freedom, intelligence, and intent. Okay? So, classification muna tayo ng crimes before ko define ko ano yung dolo and ano yung culpa. So, classification of crimes as to means or commission, pwede siyang dolo, pwede siyang culpa. Pwede rin siyang penalized by special penal laws or municipal or city ordinances. When you say dolo, ito na, dapat merong deliberate intent when the crime was committed. So, the author of the action or the offender deliberately intended to do the crime. When culpa naman, when it's a culpable felony, it's by fault. So, possible na walang deliberate intent to do harm or to cause injury. However, due to fault, which i-discuss natin later, fault, yun yung mga negligence, ganyan, reckless imprudence, merong effect pa din, and crime pa rin siya dahil nga merong fault. Hindi ka totally blameless because naging careless ka or there was also kakulangan on your part. And of course, crimes penalized by special penal laws, ito yung mga mala prohibita crimes. As to stage of execution, we have attempted stage, frustrated stage, consummated stage. So, ito yung tatlong stages. But, hindi lahat ng crimes merong attempted stage, frustrated stage, at consummated stage. Merong iba na consummated lang siya, always consummated. Yung tawag dito, formal crimes. Always consummated yung crimes na to because the offender cannot perform all the acts necessary for their execution without consummating the offense. So, later, magbibigay tayo ng examples for that. Material crimes naman, ito yung may stages of execution, ito yung may attempted, frustrated, and consummated stage. So, tawag dyan material crimes. So, yun. And there are crimes that are there are crimes that are not formal, pero material siya, pero wala siyang isang stage. So, for example, for rape, diba? Walang frustrated rape. Attempted lang or consummated. Same with arson, theft, robbery, indirect bribery, and corruption of public officers. Now, as to the gravity naman, classification of felonies as to gravity, it's grave if the law attaches capital punishment or afflictive penalties. May afflictive period. So, ito yung mga reclusion, temporal, reclusion perpetua. Less grave naman, yung maximum period imposed is correctional. So, ito yung mga prison correctional. Yan. Arresto mayor, arresto minor. Ano yan? Yung arresto minor, less grave. Yung arresto mayor, I'm not sure kung grave siya or less grave. So, put a pin on it and confirm natin later. Light felonies naman are infractions of law for which penalty of arresto minor. Okay, wait lang. So, meaning yung kung arresto minor, light felonies, yung arresto mayor up to I'm not sure kung reclusion temporal kasama, no? But arresto minor or a fine not exceeding 40,000 or both, light felonies lang yan. And light felonies are punishable only when they have been consummated, except if committed against persons or property wherein it is punishable even if attempted or frustrated. Yung light felonies produce light, insignificant moral and material injuries that public conscience is satisfied with providing a light penalty for their consummation. Sorry if I'm yawning kasi I'm just really forcing myself to do this. If they are not consummated, the wrong done is so slight that there is no need of providing a penalty at all. And light felonies are punishable by the RPC, such as slight physical injuries, theft, alteration of boundary marks, for example, malicious mischief, mga light felonies yan. Okay, so ito na, yung sabi kong put a pin on it, no? Regarding the penalties. Grave felonies, yung capital punishment, such as death, also reclusion perpetua and reclusion temporal. Okay, so yung reclusion temporal, grave felony siya. Perpetual or temporary absolute disqualification, perpetual or temporary special disqualification, prison mayor, and a fine of more than 1.2 million. Less grave kapag ka prison correctional, arresto mayor, suspension, destierro. Fine not exceeding 1.2 million but is not less than 40,000. Light felonies naman, arresto menor or fine not exceeding 40,000 or both. Okay, and only principals and accomplices are punished when consummated except if committed against persons or property. So, simula tayo sa baba. Pagka prison correctional, prison mayor, and arresto menor or mga mas mababa pa dyan, and yung fine, in terms of fine naman, if hindi mag-exceed ng 40,000, light felonies yan. Kapag nag-exceed ng 40,000 pero hindi naman nag-exceed ng 1.2 million, ibig sabihin pag eksaktong 1.2 million, less grave felonies yan. And kung sa penalties naman, yung destierro, suspension, arresto mayor, prison correctional, less grave. Ngayon, pag sumobra ng 1.2 million yung fine or prison mayor, perpetual or temporary special disqualification, perpetual or temporary absolute disqualification, reclusion temporal, and reclusion perpetua, grave na yan. Okay. So, as to count naman, we have composite crimes. It is composed of two or more crimes but is treated by law as a single, indivisible, and unique offense for being the product of one criminal impulse. Yung compound naman is a single act that constitutes two or more grave or less grave felonies. So, sa compound, dapat grave or less grave combo. Complex when the offense committed is a necessary means for committing another offense. Continued or continuous, united in the same intent or resolution, leading to the perpetration of the same criminal purpose or aim. Continuing or transitory, so magkaiba si continued or continuous sa continuing or transitory. A single crime committed through a series of acts arising from one criminal intent or resolution, and some acts material and essential to the crimes and requisite to the commission occur in one municipality or territory, and some acts done in another place. So if a crime is committed in multiple localities subject to existing laws, the criminal action shall be instituted and tried in the court of the municipality or territory where the offense was committed or where any of its essential ingredients occurred. If crime is committed inside a vehicle or a vessel, the criminal action shall be instituted and tried in the court of any municipal or territory where such vehicle or vessel passed during its trip. Vehicle ba or vehicle? Including the place of its departure and arrival. If crime is committed on board a vessel in the course of its voyage, the criminal action shall be instituted and tried in the court of first port of entry. Or if any municipality or territory where the vessel passed during such a voyage, subject to the generally accepted principles of international law. So really, yung continuing or transitory, more siya sa parang remedial siya eh. Kung saan mo i-file sa venue, dun siya nag-a-affect talaga. Continued or continuous, ito yung isa lang. There's this case involving like roosters or chicken. I forgot what's the name of the case. Wherein iba-ibang bahay yung ninakawan ng manok. But then considered siya as isa. Hindi siya hindi siya multiple counts, rather parang inisa lang siya. It's because it's a continued or continuous crime. So single impulse, yung effect niya madami, sure, pero yung intention naman talaga niya is magnakaw ng chicken sa buong area, hindi lang sa isang bahay. Ganon. So continued or continuous siya, hindi pwedeng separate counts per bahay kasi one instance pagkanakaw niya sa isa, lipat na naman siya sa isa, ninakaw niya rin doon, and then lilipat naman siya. So, ganon. As to nature, it can be mala inse or mala prohibita, which I already discussed earlier. Alright. So, di muna tayo magki-cases. Actually, maganda mag-discuss ng case, pero siguro later na or kapag medyo may gana na ako. Okay, requisites of dolo or malice, agents of voluntariness, yun yung term. Yun yung freedom, intelligence, and criminal intent. So, there's freedom if an act is done with power to choose between two things. Intelligence is the ability to determine the morality of human acts, as well as the capacity to distinguish between a licit and an illicit act. Criminal intent naman is a state of mind accompanying an act. It is the purpose of the mind and the resolve with which a person proceeds. This is not an essential requisite in culpable felonies and mala prohibita crimes. Yung criminal intent. So, pwedeng freedom and intelligence and voluntariness. Or, well, yun yung freedom. Diba? So, yun. Siguro meron pa rin intent, pero it's intent na talagang gawin. Yun. Yung culpa. Pero walang need ng criminal intent. Like yung state of mind talaga na to cause someone injury or damage or loss. So, the difference of intent from criminal intent is the purpose or the purpose to use a particular means to effect such result. So, element siya ng crime except in unintentional felonies. So, criminal intent naman could be a general criminal intent or a specific criminal intent. So, if it's a general criminal intent, it is an intention to do a wrong that is presumed to exist from the mere doing of a wrongful act. And the burden of proving the absence of the intent is upon the accused. Specific criminal intent naman is an intention to commit a definite act. So, in existence of the intent, and the existence of the intent is not presumed. Okay, meron lang tayo typo sa notes. Because it is an ingredient or element of a crime, and the burden of proving existence of the intent is upon the prosecution, as such intent is an element of crime. Ito yung specific criminal intent, such as intent to gain, intent to kill, mga ganon. So, intent to kill sa murder. Intent to gain sa theft, sa robbery, ganyan. So, kailangan i-prove yung criminal intent kasi malain sa yung crimes na to eh. Alright? I think I need to make myself a cup of coffee. Para magka-energy naman tayo dito konti. So, I'll just finish discussing until culpable felonies. And then, I'll make myself a cup of coffee. Tapos, continue tayo ng discuss ng from mistake of fact onwards. Okay. So, motive muna tayo, no? It is the moving power which impels one to action for a definite result. It is not an essential element of crime and cannot be proved for purposes of conviction. However, nagiging importante yung motive if there is a need to prove, no, the identity of the accused kasi in dispute siya, or there is a need in ascertaining the truth between like two version of the same event. Like kapag hindi consistent yung set of facts, kapag hindi parehas yung versions ng magkabilang parties ng facts. If evidence is also circumstantial, then maybe motive can play a role. When there are no eyewitnesses to the crime and suspicion is likely to fall upon a number of persons. So, kung sino yung may motive, usually, baka yun. Pero hindi siya conclusive yung motive Parang factor lang siya na tinitake into consideration sa certain situations. When there is doubt as to the identity of the offender or the assailant, if the evidence of guilt of the accused is inconclusive and the act could not give rise to variant crimes. Culpable felonies, the act or omission is not malicious kasi wala ngang criminal intent. However, mayroong injury, and the injury caused by the offender to another is unintentional, it being simply the incident of another act performed without malice. Culpable felonies defined and punished under Article 365 of the Revised Penal Code are substantially distinct and cannot form part of the complex crime as defined under Article 48, which is a procedural device allowing single prosecution of multiple felonies. Article 365 is a substantive rule penalizing not an act defined as felony but a single mental attitude regardless of the resulting consequences. So, yung requisites ng culpa is freedom, intelligence, and instead of criminal intent, it could be culpa or the fault, such as negligence, imprudence, lack of foresight, or lack of skill. So when you say negligence, it indicates a deficiency of perception, failure to pay proper attention and to use diligence in foreseeing the injury or damage impending to be caused, usually involves lack of foresight. It is a failure to observe the protection of the interests of another person, the degree of care, precaution, and vigilance which the circumstances justly demand, whereby such other person suffers injury. Negligence and conspiracy cannot coexist because crimes committed through negligence presupposes lack of intent, whereas conspiracy denotes a meeting of the mind, so malamang. Di mo masasabing may negligence is conspiracy kasi pag conspiracy, nagplano-plano kayo to do a crime together. Diba? So, incompatible. Imprudence indicates a deficiency of action, failure in precaution, or failure to take necessary precaution once danger or peril becomes foreseen. If death resulted from an act committed with lack of foresight, carelessness, or negligence, the act must be qualified as reckless or simple negligence or imprudence resulting in homicide. There are crimes that by their structure cannot be committed through imprudence, such as murder, treason, malicious mischief. In truth, criminal negligence in our RPC is treated as a mere quasi-offense and dealt with separately from willful offenses. It is not a mere question of classification or terminology. In international crimes, the act itself is punished. In negligence or imprudence, what is principally penalized here in the Philippines is hindi yung act i-discuss natin yung Ivler case later. Nababother ako kung penalized or penalized, pero tinatamad ako mag-check. Penalized is the mental attitude or condition behind the act. The dangerous recklessness, lack of care or foresight, and imprudence punishable. Ang dami kong typo. Alright. Kailangan ko na talaga magkape kasi ang pangat ng pag-discuss ko. Anyway, a man must use his common sense and exercise due reflection in all his acts. It is his duty to be cautious, careful, and prudent, if not from instinct then through fear of incurring punishment. Acts that are executed negligently are considered voluntary. I mean, pinili mong maging negligent so that's still voluntary. Again, may requisites pa rin yung culpa, that is freedom of action, walang pumilit sa'yo to do it. Intelligence, nag-discern ka. Kaso nga lang yung pag-discern mo medyo may kakulangan, no? That's why nagkaroon ka ng negligence, imprudence, lack of foresight, lack of skill. pero hindi masasabing exempted ka. Hindi pwedeng dahilan na negligent ka. Kasi yung reason ng law is dapat as a responsible citizen, you should think before you act, and you should be conscious of other people. Hindi pwedeng, ay sorry, puro ka na lang sorry niyan, edi ang dami nang na-injure, diba? And parang pwede kang mag-hide behind that cloak, diba? Sabihin mo, hindi ko naman sinasadya eh. Pero the thing is, you have to be careful so that you don't cause injury or damage or worse, loss to other people. So, yan. However, kapag ka naman may ginawa ka tas nag-result sa loss, injury, or damage, pero you were very careful. It's just that, despite the absence of negligence, imprudence, lack of foresight, or lack of skill, meron pa ring effect, which is the injury, the loss, or the damage suffered by another. Then, in that case, diba, maaring accident or what, then later we will discuss exempting circumstances. Okay, so I need to make myself coffee, and then I'll continue with part 2 of this, starting with the mistake of fact, the Achong case. Okay, thank you.